Hey everyone, thanks for joining Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm looking at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Mercurial. This is a new one by Hyperlixir. It is a 1 to 4 player game that takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour and a half to play, and is a competitive game where players are competing with each other to have the most points at the end of the game to be the overall winner. So in the game itself, each player is going to be playing a mage, and you are trying to use your elemental dice to control chaos, which is going to allow you to gain new spell components or cards that are going to allow you to cast an overall spell that is going to give you a certain number of points in either ruination or restore or life, and depending upon where everything falls, those will cancel each other out, and you must cast with everything that you have at that point, including any dice that are remaining and all that, and I'll show you how that works a little bit later. But once you do, you're going to get a number in either one of those two categories that you're going to spend to buy a heroic card that's going to get you a number of points. It's also going to get you sigils, which will help you kind of build up throughout the rest of the game, which will give you little perks when using some of your alteration cards and other things. So there is a little bit of a deck building element to this and a engine building element as well. From there, then, depending upon the number of players that are going to be playing the game, there is going to be a set amount of heroics that are needed to be gathered to trigger the end of the game. Once that amount is reached, then all players will cast the rest of their spells, and then the player that has the most points will be the overall winner of the game. So in this video, I'm going to show you the main features of the game and also show you a sample turn to give you a good idea how this one plays and whether or not this is one you would like to back on Kickstarter. As always, if you find these videos helpful, if you enjoy what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so we can continue to grow and build and produce this content. If you want to stay on all my videos, consider ringing that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new stuff. So let's go ahead and head to the table and we'll see how this one plays. So first, let's start by looking at the different mages that players can play as in the game. So each mage is going to have his own board, and this is going to outline all the different information on it. So each mage is going to have a classification or name and will list the number of cards that mage will start the game with. Each mage will usually start with 2 basic cards, and then will also have a randomly drawn card. Some will have more and some will have less. With the randomly drawn cards, you're going to randomly draw one of those cards, and each one of them are going to have different abilities, as you're going to see a little bit later in the video. Each mage will also have a special ability, so this particular mage can reroll 2 additional dice during times when he can reroll. And then you're also going to have the different stats for that mage. So each mage is going to have a certain number of elemental dice that they're going to work with throughout the game. They're also going to have a starting amount of mana and acuity. And those will be stored here, and there's going to be slots for all those, and each one of those can hold a maximum of 10 of those crystals. Each mage is also going to have a conversion chart at the bottom when casting spells, and I'll go over casting spells a little bit more later, but each one of the different elements are going to be able to be converted into one of the 2 different types of resources for that, whether it is ruin or restore, and then you can also spend acuity to also add to that. And again, I'll cover this more during spell casting. And there's going to be 4 main mages that you'll have to choose from in the game. To start off with, we have the Arcanists, we have an Elementalist, and an Enchanter. And then you can also start your first games as an Initiate, and all of those are going to be exactly the same for the starting to get you into the game. From there, let's take a look at some of the other cards that players are going to be interacting with throughout the game. So there are going to be 3 main decks of cards that players are going to be working with and gaining new cards from throughout the game. The first one are alteration cards, and each one of these cards is going to allow the player to manipulate their elemental dice in certain ways, or they can always choose to spend it to re-roll 2 elemental dice that they haven't used yet. So for example, if we look at this one here, this one allows us to convert any number of our lightning elemental dice over to fire, which basically means that if you have a die that has the lightning symbol on it, you can use this to convert it over to the fire symbol. Next, we have a card that has a requirement on it that you must possess at least 2 water symbols. As long as you do, even if you've used those to purchase other cards or whatnot, those are simply a requirement that you must have. And then from there, this allows you to convert one of your dice that you choose, or 2 of them, into void, which is going to basically just nullify those dice. And then you can also gain an acuity, and if you have a sigil that's pictured here, for each of the purple sigils you have, you gain an additional acuity. So you'll be able to do this, as you're going to see a little bit later, as you gain heroic cards. Some of them will have these sigils that you'll get benefits from. And then likewise, each one of them is going to work a little bit differently, and you'll be able to play these during your turn to take these different actions that are listed on them. Or you can always, again, use the bottom ability. The next set of cards we'll look at are these spell cards, and these are going to be the main cards that players are going to be collecting throughout the game so that they can cast their spell and be able to purchase heroic cards with the resources that are granted from these. So looking at these cards, each one of the cards is going to have some different abilities on it or different effects, and there's going to be 3 main different types of cards that we're going to go over. First off, each card is going to either have an ability here or list the number of points you're going to gain either in Ruin or in Restore. And again, that's what you're going to use to purchase heroic cards. Each one of these cards is also going to have a cost that you must pay, either in fire, water, or some other element. You can also pay with some of your mana with some of these abilities as well. So for these 2 slots here, you can spend 2 mana to be able to cover that slot, or you can spend a fire elemental die. And then those dice are going to be locked until that card or that spell is cast, and you'll cast all of the spells that you have. Now, some spells can also be boosted, which are going to have the yellow borders around them, and they're also going to have a golden number in there. If you have the boosted spell, which means that you have to have an ether either on the elemental die or some other ability, then you're able to boost the spell into the higher level spell. So this one would actually count as 8 ruin points instead of 6 if you're able to boost it. And then the next kind of spell we have are linked spells, and these are going to be linked to a regular spell that you have and are going to do something to it. For example, with this one, this is going to multiply that linked spell by 3. So if we were able to complete this one, this is going to give us 8 points in Ruin, and then this would multiply that by 3, giving us 24 Ruin points. Wow, that's a lot. We also have enchantment spells, and these are going to have some other type of effects. With this spell, for example, it's going to convert all of your Restore over to Ruin. So if, for example, let's say that this was giving us Restore points instead, we'd have 24 Restore points. That would now convert the 24 Restore points over to 24 Ruin points. And the other important thing with this is when generating a spell, if you generate both Ruin and Restore, they're going to cancel each other out. So you'll have to subtract one from the other, and then whichever one is the higher value, whatever is left over is your total cost. So creating and generating a casting of a collection of spells is going to be a process. Or you can have equilibrium where both your Ruin and your Restore are equal, and then you're going to get a bonus, a number of points, which is going to be based on the track. So if we look at this one here, let's go ahead and say that you were able to have 8 or 9 equilibrium points, which means that you had 8 or 9 Ruin and you had the same number of Restore, which would then grant you an equilibrium. With this, then it's going to give you these new values, and it's also going to give you a reward. For this one, for example, you would gain an acuity. And this is going to have some benefits as well, giving you quite a bit of points to be able to spend, and you can choose either value to spend, and I'll show you what you can spend that on in the next set of cards. Going over the dice real quick, each die is going to have 6 different sides. They're going to have 4 different elements: mountains, lightning, fire, and water, and then you also have the ether and void. Void is simply going to count as nothing, and again, when casting a spell, each one of the mages is going to be able to convert some of these symbols to either Ruin or Restore, and again, depending upon how that works out, you may not want to do it, so you might want to convert some of these elemental dice before you cast your spell to Void so that you're not potentially canceling out some of your other Ruin or Restore points that you're going to be using to purchase other things. Now, once you've generated your Ruin or Restore points, you'll be able to purchase one of these heroic cards that are out. Each one of these cards is going to have a value both in Ruin and in Restore that you must meet in order to purchase it. Now, again, you're only going to have one value, whether it's in Restore or Ruin, which is going to dictate what kind of card you can purchase. And then each card is going to be worth a certain number of points at the end of the game. And as you can see, some of the cards that have a higher cost are going to be worth a lot more points than other cards that have the lower cost. Most of the heroic cards are also going to have sigils at the top, and again, these are going to give you certain bonuses throughout the rest of the game if you've chosen some of your other alteration cards correctly that you have some of these symbols for that will get you either more acuity or other benefits throughout the rest of the game. You can also choose to add Arcana to your game, which is going to give you a bonus objective and ways of gaining additional prestige points into the game. Each one of these cards is going to list the way you can collect it. For example, with this card, you must have a fire spell, a lightning spell, and an earth spell in your casting spell. If you can meet those requirements, you can collect this card, and at the end of the game, for every 2 fire spells you have in your collection, you're going to receive an additional prestige point. And each one of them will have different requirements. Each one of the cards is double-sided, so you're going to be able to have a variety of different Arcana that you can add to your game. So now that I've covered all the different components and different cards that you're going to be interacting with throughout the game, the last thing I want to do is show you how this all comes together and show you a couple of sample turns to give you a good idea how this is going to work. So first off, we're going to move over to our starting Chaos Mancer's turn. So during each player's turn, they are going to be performing one of 2 different actions. You can either take and play, or you can choose to cast. So first what we're going to take a look at is the take and play. With this action, it's going to allow you to do this in any order. It will allow you to take one card, which can be an alteration card, or you can purchase a new spell component by using your elemental dice as well as your mana and acuity. And then you can play a card. So you can choose to purchase, say, an alteration card and then immediately play it for its ability. Or you can play a card that you already have in your hand. Now, as you play cards, they're going to go into a discard pile that you're not going to be able to take back until you choose to take that action to retrieve all of the cards in your exhausted or discard pile. So first, let's go ahead and start with the Chaos Mancer's turn. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and take that take and play action. So I'm going to go ahead and do a take action first. So I'm going to gain this alteration card. So in order to do this, if I choose to take one of the alteration cards from this row, except for the very leftmost card, these are all going to have a cost of 1 acuity. When you do that, you'll place that on the leftmost card, and then you'll take the card that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one here and add this to my hands. From there, then any of the other cards would slide over to fill that gap, and then you're going to flip over this to replace the rightmost card in that category. From there, now that I've taken my take action, now I'm going to play. So I can choose one of the cards in my hand to play, and each one of these is going to have different requirements. So for example, I could do this one, which would allow me to gain an acuity and add it to my supply. Or I could choose, for example, to do this one that I just got. This one is going to allow me to take one of my water elements and convert it into either a mountain or a fire element. And if I had a sigil, I could do that additional number of times. So I'm going to go ahead and play this one. And again, like I said, it lets me convert one of my waters into either a mountain or a fire. So I'm going to go ahead and convert it over to a fire. And from there, that is going to finish off my turn. Now, there will be cards in the game that might allow you to do additional actions, such as being able to take another card or play another card or something like that. So depending upon the cards you have, you may be able to do a little bit more during your turn. But that is all I can do during my turn, so then it would pass over to the next player to go. So let's go ahead and look at one more example of this. So with this player, let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and do, again, that play and take action. So this player is going to opt to purchase a spell component. So they're going to go ahead and take this one. Now, it is at a discount. These two here are -1 mana and -1 acuity, so it would cost a little bit less to get these cards. So she's going to go ahead and go after this one. So first off, it would cost 2 mountains, so she does have those. And then she can choose to either spend a 3rd mountain, which she does not have, or she could spend 2 mana or -1 mana, since this is a discount, so just 1. So that would complete that spell, and that will move it over to her area. And then the rest of these will slide over, and a new one will come out. From there, she did her take action, so she still has a play action, so she can play one of the cards from her hand. So, for example, with this one here, she could spend an acuity. This one would allow her to pick up an exhausted card that she already played and then play a card. So I don't really have an exhausted card at this point, so that one really wouldn't do me any good, but I'm going to go ahead and play this one instead. This is going to allow me to gain an acuity, so I'll go ahead and take one from the supply and add it to her area. From there, then her turn is over, and it would move back over to the other player to go. But for the last example with this, I'm going to go ahead and fill her area up a little bit more. So she has a linked spell that she had purchased there. And let's go ahead and say that she was able to change, let's see. Let's go ahead and say that she was able to change her dice. She picked up another item that allowed her to change some of these over to fire. And then we'll switch this one to a mountain just for this example. So let's go ahead and say that she spent those, and then it would cost her 4 of the mana to complete that one. So let's go ahead and say that she did that in a previous turn. So at this point, it would come back to her turn, and she has pretty much spent everything that she can at this point. So she's going to go ahead and cast this spell. So in order to do that, she's going to total it up. So she has a linked spell, so it's going to be linked to a regular spell that she has. So she's going to go ahead and obviously link it to this one because it's the only one that she has. And this one's going to give her 7 ruination. Then this is going to multiply that result by 2. So that's going to give her 14 ruination. From there, then she's going to go up to her board and convert any of the other dice that she has currently out on the board. So right now she does have an elemental die that is a mountain. So underneath her chart, as you can see here, for both water and mountains, they are going to convert over to restore for her. So that would give her 1 restore and 14 ruination. Now she can also spend acuity to get different things as well. And let's see. It would cost her 2, 4, 6. So let's go ahead and, for this example, I'm going to go ahead and give her a couple more acuity just so you can see how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and spend all of my acuity, which is going to give me 2 more ruination. So that would bring my total up to 16. But I do have that 1 restore because you have to spend everything that you have. So any dice that you have, even if it's a negative effect, you have to resolve it. So she does have that 1 restore, which is going to drop her ruination by 1. So that would bring her to 15, as she had 16. So she's at 15 now. From there, now that we've handled all that, then she's going to come up here to the heroics that are out there. And she can choose one of those that she wishes to purchase with that 15 ruination, as long as she has enough for it. So we do have this one right in the middle here, or the one next to it that she could buy. That one is 11, and the other one is 15. The other ones that are out there are too expensive for her. So obviously you want the one that's worth the most points, so this one here would get her 8 points. It also comes with, anytime you purchase a heroic, you're going to receive 1 mana and 2 acuity for that. So we'd do those, and then this is going to go off to the side. Now you do want to make sure that you keep it somewhere you can reference, as it does. Most of these are going to have a sigil, so you're going to benefit from those later on. So we'll just place this over here off to the side. We can return this to the supply, as anytime you use those, they're going to be returned to the supply. Then you're going to regain all of your mana and your dice that you're going to roll again during your next turn. Now any spells that you cast or any components used to cast the spells are going to be placed off to the side, as there are going to be certain Arcana cards that we're going to give you additional points based on the cards that you have at the end of the game. And then you'll replenish that, adding additional mana and acuity to that card. And then again from there, it'll move over to the other player to take their turn. And this is going to continue going back and forth until, again, one of those players has gotten a number of heroics based on the number of players that are playing. For example, in a two-player game, 6 heroic cards would trigger the end of the game, where at that point, then the other player would cast any spells that they had left, and then the players are going to total up all of their points. And the player that has the most is going to be the winner of the game. Well, I hope you found this video helpful in deciding on whether or not this is one you want to back on Kickstarter. As always, if you have any questions or comments, post those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by the Kickstarter's main page and drop any questions you have there as well. I'm sure the creators would love to hear from you, and are more than happy to answer any questions you have. Until next time, I'll see you later.